I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David M. Walker. Hey, I want to welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Culture. I'm so super excited about this episode today. I have a great friend that's on today, and we're going to have an outstanding conversation. But before we get to the conversation, as you know, each week I ask you to do me a favor. I ask you, number one, to subscribe to the show. Just click that subscribe button, and that way each week when the show comes on, you'll get notified that a brand new episode has been uploaded and is ready for you either to listen on iTunes or to watch it on YouTube. And of course, the other thing I always ask is that you share the show. If you enjoy what you hear each and every week with our guests, share the show and let someone else know that Beyond the Culture is on. Now, I'm ready to go into this conversation today. Now, usually when I have a guest on, all of my guests are outstanding, but some of them are just, I guess, more special than others. And today, I'm having a conversation with an old friend, and I'm just super excited that he's on with me today. So let me introduce you to my friend. His name is Norm Roberts. Norm is a men's basketball coach at the University of Kansas. And that's very important today because they've just come off of winning the National Basketball Championship, the NCAA Basketball Championship, and Norm is a coach on that team. He has an extensive coaching career. He's made stops at Queens College, where he was a head coach, and also St. John's University. He's been at Oral Roberts, Tulsa, the University of Illinois, Florida, and also Kansas. Norm is a native New Yorker, and most importantly, Norm is my friend. And I want to welcome to Beyond the Culture, my friend, Mr. Norm Roberts. Norm, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it, man. I'm excited about being here today.
I'm super excited about having you on because, as I said, you know, all of my guests are special, but you and I go back. We go back to like the 1980s. You were a coach at Queens College, and of course, most of my audience know that I referee NCAA basketball, and you know I refereed your games when you were there, and you did an outstanding job while you were at Queens. And then, of course, over the years, we would run across each other at basketball games and tournaments. A few times I refereed your games when you were the head coach at St. John's University. And so we've just had a great friendship over the years. And so, again, I'm super excited by having you on the show today. But here's where I want to start. As I said in the intro, the University of Kansas is just coming off of winning the national championship. And I want to ask you, you know, how does it feel, Norm, to be a national championship coach?
I would tell you, I've had a lot of people ask me that question, and I don't know how to feel. I think after we won the title that night, you know, when we all ran on the court and were hugging and all that stuff, I think a lot of passion, emotion, all that stuff let out. We were so proud of our guys and really proud of this team and the way they did it. They had to fight, scratch, claw to get back into a game. And it was tough for them. And when you win that way, you have a special feeling when it happens that way. But since then, I've enjoyed every minute of it. There's a lot of pats on the back. There's a lot of people calling. I got over 500 text messages from different people just saying congratulations because they know about my journey. They know about how long I've been in this game. You know, I was in the Elite Eight at Tulsa with Coach Self. And we lost to North Carolina, had Eddie Cota, they had a good team, and they beat us to go to the Final Four. And as a young 35-year-old, I thought, man, this ain't that hard. We're going to get back here again. People say this is hard. All you got to do is win a couple of games and all that stuff. Well, 22 years later, you know, I end up getting a championship. So it is very hard. It's not easy. I'm totally blessed. and excited and just so happy and fortunate that we're able to do it.
You know, you mentioned sometimes the journey to a championship is very difficult. And even as a basketball coach, the journey is difficult. And I'm gonna talk about some of your personal journey a little bit later. But I want to go back to that game that night, that Monday night down in New Orleans. Um, the University of Kansas was down by 15 points. And, you know, listen, there were a lot of people who were saying it's over. It's over because North Carolina was shooting, you know, the lights out, as we say in sports. But you were down 15 points, and now you go into that locker room in halftime, and as we know, you came back to win. What was said in that locker room by you and your coaching staff? And I know, you know, Bill Self is the head coach. What was said in that locker room to kind of turn things around and to help your players to understand that the game was not over?
Well, we had been in some tough situations throughout the year. Coach went into the locker room, we all did, and everybody was really calm. We were calm, we were disappointed in how we played, but then once we started talking just as a coaching staff in the coach's locker room, we talked about, well, are we really playing that bad? We're really not. We've made some bad decisions defensively in our rotations, which gave Brady Manick a couple of threes. We also said, God, offensively, we've had 5 layups at the rim. So even if we were down, we should only be down 5 or 6, but we were down more because we missed so many bunnies. So we said, hey, let's keep doing what we're doing, but we have to ratchet up our defense. We've got to guard, we got to do the proper rotations. We can't leave shooters open, and we've got to pressure. And coach went into the guys and said exactly that to them. He said, guys, let me just tell you something, because coach has experienced this before. He said, would you rather be down 15 points with 20 minutes to go in a half, or down 9 points with 2 minutes to go in the game? And he said, well, let me just tell you something. We beat Memphis to win the national championship in 08, and we were down 9 points with 2 minutes left, and we came back and won. So what I'm telling you is there's plenty of time. We got plenty of time to get back in the game, but we have to do it on the defensive end, and that's what we did.
You know, I mean, that's great because, you know, sports is about having the right words said to you at the right moment. It's about confidence. It's about knowing that, like you say, you're not playing that bad. They may be doing one thing or another a little bit better, but with adjustments, we can come out here and we can get this victory. And so that was great to hear that, because I think it shows a sign of leadership. It shows a sign of understanding how the game is to be played, whether it's sports or whether it's even in life. You got to make adjustments in life, right? And you got to come back, and you can't quit, and you got to stick with it. But now that you said that, you also mentioned something about the journey through the season. And I always believe that whenever a team wins a championship, they very rarely go from number one at the beginning of the year and end up number one, you know, all year long. You know, there's always ups and downs in a season. And I feel that there's always a moment, a challenging part of the season that a team overcomes, or what I call a defining moment in the season that a team can look back at and say, you know what, this is what happened to us then. And I think that helped to propel us to this title. Was there a defining moment for your team during the middle of the season?
I would say there were a couple.
Okay.
One would be a negative moment, playing against, well, let me start this way. One defining moment to start the year off, we played Michigan State to start the year in the Champions Classic. It's Michigan State, Kansas, it's Duke and Kentucky. And in that game, a defining moment was we had told Ochai Agbaji that he is the guy. He's the guy. He's the guy that's going to lead us. We knew he had to be that guy, and the other guys had to follow suit with him. And in that game, he had 30 points, and he played fantastic. But you knew he was at a different level of playing the game. So that was one defining moment, too. Just try to get our season off to a good start.
Sure.
Then we played Kentucky. And Kentucky played us at home in Allen Fieldhouse. And Kentucky beat the doors off us. They beat the doors off us. We couldn't do anything right. They beat, I think they ended up beating us by 20 or 19, and we couldn't do anything right. And we were really, really bad that day. And coach kept saying to our guys, hey, those are real guys over there in the locker room. We're not real guys yet. We think we are, but those guys are real guys. Those are guys that are getting after it and that stuff. And we did not do what we needed to do. So that was a defining moment coming back from that. Then we had a tough game against Texas Tech.
Okay.
And Tech had beaten us at Tech. And then we played them back at home and we beat them. I believe it was either 1 overtime or 2 overtimes, but there was plays after plays after plays, being down. You think you're out. Ochai Agbaji made big shots. Christian Brown did, Jalen Wilson. So we win that game. Then we had another big overtime game against Texas at home, who had beaten us at Texas. But in reality, we had the game won. And we played the worst minute and 10 seconds you can ever play. And then they hit a Hail Mary backboard shot that beat us. So we knew we would play better at home. But Texas came to play, and it was a hard game. It's the last game of the year. It was senior day. So there was so much pressure on our kids. And it was to make sure we got a share of the Big 12 title. So it was a lot of pressure on us. And our guys won that game in overtime. Ochai Agbaji made a huge shot that took it into overtime, and then we ended up winning in overtime. So all those games helped prepare us. There were different moments that helped prepare us to be in that situation. And I would say this, when you're in pressure situations, the most important thing you can do as a leader is to be calm. They have to hear a calm, confident voice. When they hear that, it allows everybody else in the room to get confident and to be calm. So I think that's very, very important.
You know, I totally agree with that. You know, I used to always have a philosophy when I was refereeing NCAA basketball. You know, sometimes the games can get chaotic. Fans are crazy and coaches are, you know, up and down on the sideline, crazy. But I always said to myself, if you're under control, the game is under control, which meant that I could always pull it in as long as I was calm and I didn't lose control with everyone else. Because if I lost control with everyone else, the game is over. And, you know, in all due respect, because I'm going to lose control. But as long as I stayed calm and stayed in control, if things are a little crazy, you know, I can pull people back in. Sometimes it may come at a technical foul for a coach or something of that nature. So I agree with that about being calm and being poised as a leader, because then you can bring things out and bring things forward and move forward. But once you get out of control and lose confidence, then, you know, generally things are over.
Yep.
So I want to move here. And for those of you who are just joining us, you're listening to Beyond the Culture. And my guest today is coach of the national champion Kansas Jayhawks, Coach Norm Roberts. He's visiting us today. So, Coach, I want to move over to your career as a head coach. You had a couple of stops. Of course, you started at Queens College. You were there for several years, and it was I guess you would call it a training ground where you learn how to lead the team and things like that. But then you got an opportunity to coach at St. John's University. And of course, both of us are from New York. So having the opportunity to coach at a legendary New York school, as well as a national school like St. John's University, I believe I read somewhere where you said this is a dream opportunity. And I also wanted to quote Coach Lou Carnesecca, because everyone know that he was the legendary coach of St. John's University. And I couldn't find the quote exactly, but I remember when you got the job. I believe that was like 2004, 2005, somewhere in that area. Coach Carnesecca said you were the most prepared person in St. John's history to get that job. And I just thought that was an outstanding quote by legendary coach Carnesecca. Here's my question to you. What was it like, you know, being at the helm of a Division I basketball program?
I would say this. I started my coaching actually at Archbishop Malloy High School, with legendary coach Jack Kerman, who's my mentor. He's since has passed and was a terrific person and terrific coach. And I worked for him there, and I didn't even really want to coach at all. I actually was going to be a school teacher, secondary ed teacher. I enjoyed that. Physical education and health was my majors, and that's what I thought I was going to do. Get married, have wife, kids, all that stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. But in order for me to get the job at Archbishop Malloy, they wanted me to coach the freshman team. So I went off and I coached the freshman team. And then, lo and behold, you love it. You're trying to wear suits. You're trying to act like Pat Riley. My wife's like, hey, they're 12 years old. They're 13 years old. But, so you get excited about it. And then I got the job at Queens College. And when I got the job at Queens College, I was way too young to get that job. I believe at the time I got it, I may have been either 27 or 28 years old.
Okay.
And I was so young, I probably was dating some of the players, the girls 2 years ago, and nothing. So I was way too young for the job. I enjoyed the job. The one thing I learned about that is that at the lower levels now, I didn't have, how guys will say, I got 3-4 jobs. That's what I had. I was the head coach. I was in charge of the camps. I was in charge of academics. I was in charge of a bunch of different things. I had to wash the floors. I had to set up the tables for the games. I do it because you didn't have that in Division II, which I think has been great for me because it keeps you humble, hungry, those things. So I had to do all those things. And then I go to Oral Roberts, but then I'll go to St. John's. When I got the job at St. John's, we had just come off the Elite Eight. We had lost to Georgia Tech. Paul Hewitt, terrific coach at Georgia Tech. They beat us in the Elite Eight. And I got a call from St. John's. And I had wanted to get involved in the job, but they weren't interested in me. And so I actually interviewed, believe it or not, I interviewed at Miami.
Okay.
And I interviewed at SMU. And SMU offered me the job. And it was pretty close to me taking. There was some things that happened that I decided not to. And then St. John's called.
Okay.
And when St. John's called me, I was really excited about it. So I go and I interview for St. John's. And I've been through a couple of interviews now. And as we're going through the whole interview process and meeting with different people, Father Harrington,
yes,
who
I
was
remember
the
that name.
president of school at that, he asked me, why should we hire you at St. John's? And I said to him, I don't know why you should hire me, but this is what I'm about. And this is what I bring to the table. And this is what I plan on doing. And this is how I plan on running the program. And I think it caught him off guard because it wasn't like, not to say you're begging for a job or whatever. I was more like, I got a great job back at Kansas. Okay, I'm the associate head coach at Kansas. I'm going to get other opportunities, but this is who I am. If that fits you, then you hire me. If that does not fit you, then don't hire me. And I kind of left it with them in that meeting, and I did get the job. The thing that's different about Division I, and this is what's crazy about it. When I first got the job, I go and I sit in my office. And when I sat in my office, I'm there all by myself now. There's press conference, everything's done. I'm in the office like I'm sitting here right now. And it's probably about 8, 9 o'clock at night. Nobody's around, quiet. And I sit down in the chair. And when I sit down in the chair breaks. And I'm going, oh my God. And from that moment on, I was humbled right away. And St. John's was a great place for me to go work. It was different in that St. John's had quite a bit to catch up to because Coach Second had done such a good job there. But, other schools had more money, bigger budgets. If you remember, when I came into the league, that's when Louisville and all the football schools came.
Right.
Which then you had basketball and football, budgets all different. It was a whole different deal then.
Sure.
Made it a lot tougher. And I enjoyed it. We had to build the program up from the bottom because they had some situation there, academic fraud. They had a bunch of things that had gone on. So really, when I walked in the locker room with those guys, we only had 8 scholarship players when I got there.
Okay.
And when I tell you we had 8 scholarship players, 2 of them could play in the Big East. So I'm sitting there going, wow. And when I first got there, none of them were doing anything in school like they were supposed to. So what we did was we brought all the guys in and we sat them down. And I said to them, okay, this is what I'm going. Here's your release papers. And I put the release papers on the side here. I said, anybody that wants to be released can be released and go wherever they want. I'll help you. All right. Mm-hmm. But if you're not going to go to school and represent the school in the right way and do the things that I want you to do, I want you out of here anyway. So I want you to go home, talk to your parents and that stuff, and then come back tomorrow and let me know, and we'll have these release papers for you. And to a man, which I give all those kids credit, every single one of them stayed, and every single one of them did everything I asked them to do from an academic standpoint, from a basketball standpoint. So I really enjoyed those kids, even though we weren't very good. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed those kids that we had there.
You know, that's it's very powerful that those students trusted you. And again, you had conversation with them. Sounds like you're very open and honest with them, and they trusted that they were in good hands, so they stayed. Mm-hmm. And that leads me to this question, because you are an African American head coach, and you know, like I said, you come from the same place I come from, New York City. You know, mm-hmm. You're a Queens guy, and I'm a Brooklyn guy, and we know that young Black men have had challenges, you know, trying to be successful. And the majority of basketball players are going to be African American players. The majority of them are. Statistics show that. So as a Black coach, an African American coach, you know, what responsibility do you feel that you have to help athletes? I know as a coach, you have a team and it's going to be mixed, and you got to help everyone. But you know, our show is dealing with, you know, beyond the culture, and a lot of times people from our culture are challenged with becoming successful. So my question is, what responsibility do you have to be a role model for those African American players, to help them to succeed and to come above and go beyond, just like you did?
Well, I think just what you said, try to be a role model. Try to be who you are. Mm-hmm. Try to be who you are every day. I think one of the things that I really look at when dealing with young men is I treat everybody equally. Okay. I don't care what color you are. If I get on to one guy, I'm going to get on to the other guy the same way. I think our players, or players I've been involved with, realize that I care about them more than just basketball. I think they realize that I'm going to be open and frank with them when they're doing good things. I'm going to tell them they're doing good things. When they're not doing good things, I'm going to confront them and tell them you're not doing the right things. And that doesn't make me a saint that I don't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. We all do. I think sometimes, even as a coach, and even with dealing with young people, I think sometimes it's okay for you to admit that you made a mistake, that I was wrong. Maybe I was thinking the wrong way. Maybe I didn't help you the way I needed you to, because I think then kids will look at you and say, okay, this guy's hopefully down to earth and being real with me. I think the big thing with young people today is you have to hold them accountable. They want to be held accountable, even though they may fight it, you know, and I'm constantly talking to guys about what's going to happen next, you know, and that's how basketball is. Mm-hmm. Basketball is thinking next play, not what just happened, next play, next right. play, next play. And we're constantly preaching that to our young guys. Think next play, you know, play with a smile on your face, okay? Also, another thing is what basketball teaches is that it's not just about you. And we live in a society now that is totally ingrained in ourselves, our cell phone, our social media, our, it's all. And what basketball teaches you is that, no, if he doesn't do his job, then we're not going to win. We need everybody to move at the same time. We talk about this. When a shot goes up, everybody should be in motion.
Mm-hmm.
Be a guy blocking out, be a guy's attacking the rebound, be a guy's running the floor. Where everybody should be in unison and be in movement. And if everybody's not, then we're going to give up an offensive rebound or whatever it may be. So we always talk about it's we, and the more that it's we, and the more that you're successful in we, the pie is big enough for everybody. Everybody's going to achieve things and success and those things. So I think you got to be upfront, honest with people. I had a guy say this to me when I was a bit younger, 20 years ago, and he didn't mean it in the wrong way.
Okay.
But he said this to me on the phone when I was talking to him. He said, "Norm, you're the whitest black guy I've ever met." And I said, "What do you mean by that? Do you mean that because we're having a conversation and I'm being articulate with you and we're talking about things, so you're saying I must be white if I did that? Because I do have another side of me that you probably would consider black. If I started cussing and doing some other things, you'd probably say, oh, okay, there you are."
There you are.
But I say that in that I think young people, especially young black men, and there's a time and place for everything.
Absolutely.
If I'm with my boys, there's a certain way I'm gonna be speaking with my boys. It's
right.
just my boys. If I'm with my family, a certain way.
Right.
If I'm in a business situation, there's another way I'm going to speak and articulate myself and do things. And there's nothing wrong with changing in those different venues. I think sometimes guys get caught up. I'm who I am.
Right.
I'm who I am. So you just got to accept me. Well, hold on. That might not be acceptable in this sphere. Right. And what's going on here, it's not acceptable. So it's okay for you to maybe speak a certain way, maybe dress a certain way, maybe be groomed a certain way at a certain time. Doesn't mean that you're losing your culture. Doesn't mean that you're not black. Doesn't mean that you're not repping New York. But there's a certain way you have to act in a certain sphere, and you got to be okay with that. So that's kind of what I try to do with our young people, and talking to them about that, and just talking about their lives and how things all come around. We had a kid, David McCormick, on our team, our center, who made the shot to win the game. He's a stud out of Norfolk, Virginia. David McCormick this year was up and down how he played. Media and fans killed him, crushed him, said he was the worst big guy to ever play at Kansas. We can't win a national championship, can't win big with David McCormick. And we were going out for the championship game Monday night, and there was about 300 people outside of our hotel as the bus, all the guys are getting on the bus. It's awesome. And all the guys are walking out to the bus. David was the last guy getting on the bus. And the crowd was yelling, D-Mac, 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 because they were so excited for David and what he had done. And I said, if you didn't keep a good attitude, be a positive person like you did all year, you would not have been ready for this moment. He did that. And I'm so happy for him. So that's kind of how I deal with young people today and try to be.
That I love what you're saying about the importance of understanding where you are at a given time. And all behavior is not acceptable in all places. You have to know where you are. You have to know who you're talking to, and the better that you understand that, the better you'll succeed, and I appreciate you to say there are times and places where I may have to say something because it may be appropriate for the time, but then other times it's not. So I really appreciate that. So you're listening to Beyond the Culture. My guest today is national championship coach Norm Roberts from the University of Kansas. Norm, I always ask a question of my guests. The name of our show is Beyond the Culture, and the question has to do with I call it the challenge and change question. Where have you embraced change, and where have you challenged traditions, because I think that's important to embrace change and the challenge traditional norms. Let me ask you, where would you say, if at all, where you have embraced change, whether it's in your coaching, whether it's in other philosophies, and you have, challenged traditions to make sure that you saw change happen?
I would say challenging would be maybe moving out of New York City and living in the Midwest for 25 so years.
It
And
sounds challenging.
that is challenging. And I'm going from a bodega or a deli on every corner and go get something to eat or whatever you're going to do. And you know that from the different neighborhoods we lived in.
Exactly.
And playing in the schoolyard and playing on concrete and those things, and then going to the Midwest, like a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where there's quick trips, but you got to have a car everywhere you go, and it's a whole different. People are a little bit more laid back. The environment you're in may now be 99% white.
Mm.
When I was living in an environment that probably was 85% black.
That's right.
So it's a difference. And then, so what I've tried to do with that challenge is I've tried to treat people the way I want to be treated, no matter who you are, black, white, Asian American, doesn't matter. I try to treat people good. And I've had this said about Coach Self, and I hope people will say the same thing about me, is people will say about Bill Self, he's the same guy I knew when he was at Oral Roberts, that's the coach at Kansas. He's the same guy. Like he didn't change who he is, his character, who he is as a person. And I hope people say the same thing about me. I've tried extremely hard in those challenges. Like when we used to go to the Final Four,
mm-hmm.
I made it a point that I would go see all the old school cats from New York. They would have their group, and I'd make sure when I was coming through the lobby, no matter if I was at Oral Roberts, Queens, Oral Roberts, Tulsa, Illinois, or Kansas, that I was going to sit down, have a beer, hang out with those guys for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it was,
mm-hmm.
to pay homage to those guys that came before me. Yeah. I always loved doing that and seeing those guys. If those guys called me, I always pick up the phone, because I think it's very important that you need to remember where you came from. And so I would always do that. And I tell that to young coaches today. It's funny how coaching is. When I was coaching at Oral Roberts, Division II guys and low Division I guys, assistants, would talk to me if I saw them at the Final Four. Then I go to Tulsa and we go to the Elite Eight and lose to Duke with Johnny Dawkins and those guys. And all of a sudden, while I'm in the lobby, Johnny Dawkins comes up and says, "Hey, Norm, what's up?" Some other guys start talking to you that you didn't talk to before. And you're like, did I change or what happened? And then I get over to Illinois, and the next thing is everybody's running up to you. Hey, baby, need to talk to you. Hey, man, hey, when you get your job, hey, call me, man. We need to get, all of a sudden, you're Big Willie when you walk in the room. And then I got to Kansas, and it was the same thing. Hey, there's Norm Roberts, and I'm like, so what I've always tried to do, though, is the Division II, Division III, JUCO, whatever. If I see those people, what's up, baby? Hey, spend some time, talk. Sure. I didn't get here so that I don't talk down to people who may be at a little bit lower level from a job standpoint.
Right.
So I've tried very hard, and I tell young coaches, don't do that, man. Don't think you've arrived that now you don't need to talk to this person or deal with that person, because remember the people that help prop you up. Those would be the same ones that'll kick you in your ass when you don't make it. They'll remember that and step on you. So I said, remember that. So I've always tried to deal with that when you talk about challenges that I've been, and then me trying to change norms, because changing, I totally believe, I see so many guys get big heads and lose their perspective on stuff. Like even me winning a national championship. This is awesome.
Right.
I'm still Norm. I won. If you talk to any of my ex-players, it was so funny. a friend of mine met a kid who I coached in high school. His name was Alex Mavroukas. I coached him on my freshman team at Archbishop Malloy. Coach Quarterbaum's wife works with him in a national deal at her business. They were doing a seminar Zoom call, and the guy was on the Zoom call after we won the championship. So he says to her, hey, do you know, I know your husband's on the staff at Kansas. Do you know Norm Roberts? And she goes, yes. He goes, he coached me as a freshman. And she goes, really? And you know what the first thing he said was, does he still yell like that, like he used to? Because he used to yell all the time. And she said, nope, he hasn't changed. That's exactly what he does. He still yells all the time. So, you know, I think you got to be who you are.
Okay.
I think when you have a chance to lead and help people in their path, I try to do that as much as possible. And I always tell them, don't take my word for it. You decide what's best for you. But this is what I think. This is what my path has been. You decide what's best for you.
Any regrets about the journey? Anything that you would say that you didn't get done? Somebody you didn't help? Is there anything that you say, if I could do that over again, I'd do it differently?
Probably one of the regrets I have is my oldest boy.
Okay.
And this is what happens in this business. My oldest boy, when we were in New York, because of traffic, job, all those things, I got so consumed in the job at St. John's that not that I neglected him, but I did not spend as much time with him. Like, I didn't get to see him play but maybe 3 games in high school. Okay. Never got to see him play, just because one time they play, I couldn't get there, we're traveling, whatever. So I didn't get that. And that's where you have to have a strong, in this business, you got to have a strong partner, and that is your wife. She has to be strong because we're doing so much, and I'm worrying about 15 kids that aren't even my kids. And sometimes you end up not paying as much attention to your own kids. And that's where a strong wife has to come in and help you in that. My wife did an unbelievable job. But if I could have spent more time with my oldest boy, and that's it, and we have a great relationship, but if I could spend more time with him, because my youngest one, he was here in Kansas, so I got to watch every game. Every game, I got to be around him. AAU ball, I got to be around everything. And I said, man, that was cool with my young one. God, I could have been cool with my older boy too. So I probably regret that. And in the job, I regretted somewhat at St. John's. I did become so consumed with the job that, believe it or not, I never got a chance to enjoy some of the successes that we had. And as you get older, you kind of learn that now, like enjoy, like when we went to the Final Four this year, I said to my wife, I'm going to enjoy it. Like I didn't enjoy it when we went against Villanova. They beat us pretty bad that in 2018. I didn't enjoy it. I was so wrapped up in it. I said, no, you know what? I'm going to eat that cheesecake. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to enjoy, you know, and so I really tried to enjoy this Final Four. And I knew at St. John's, you know, we had beaten ranked teams and stuff like that. And it was just on to the next one, on to that. You didn't enjoy. Right. And I think I'm probably learning in my older age is you got to try to enjoy some of these things.
I definitely agree with that. And one of the last questions that I want to ask you, what advice would you give to someone that wants to get into the career of coaching and being a top level coach? What advice would you share?
Don't do it. But what I would say to them, the culture in coaching has really totally changed. Okay, it's made it much harder to get in, be it NCAA rules, whatever it may be. It's made it much harder, you know, because back in the day, you could get in as a film guy, development guy, you can get in. But now it's harder to do that because if you're involved with the high school team or coach of an AAU team, you can't get into business that way anymore. They took that away. I would say the thing that you have to do is try to open up your network, meet as many people as possible. You've got to be real in who you are. You cannot be afraid to grind.
Mm.
And this is what happens to a lot of young people today. You have to enjoy the job you're at. The job you're at is the best job you can have. You can't be in one job and be thinking about the other ones while you're in that job. So I've always tried to be that Oral Roberts. Like Oral Roberts, I thought I was going to be at Oral Roberts for 20 years. We'll be at Oral Roberts. And this is a heck of a job at Oral. And then when we went to Tulsa, I said, wow, we're lucky. Boy, this Tulsa job's going to be great. We're going to be really good. And then we went to Illinois, and I said, oh my gosh, boy, we really made it. This is going to be terrific. And then we get to Kansas. And then in between, went to Florida for 1 year and worked for Billy Donovan, who was absolutely one of the best guys in the world. So I think you have to do the job you're in, do it to the best of your ability, and still, even to this day, I try to be the same guy I was back at Queens College. Even to this day, if the floor is dirty, I will clean it. If there's papers on the ground, I will move it. If something needs to be done, I'll go do it. If it's camp and a little kid needs something, I'll go do it. Like, I don't get caught up in, you're the assistant coach here, you're at this level, you've done this, I don't get caught up in that. I get caught up in doing the job and making sure I'm representing whoever I'm working for or representing myself in the right way. I don't get caught up in the other stuff. And I think a lot of young people, they think they get to a certain level, so I don't have to do that anymore. No, hold on. Yes, you do. You still got to do that because you know what? It's the right thing to do. So just do it. You're not beyond that, The other thing with young people today, I think they get caught up in this. And my advice to them, if you're a young guy, I've been around almost 30 years now. If you're a young guy and I beat you into work every day, that's not good. That's not good. I've been in the business 30 years. Maybe I get in at 9:45. I know we're going to be here to 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Maybe I get in at 9:45. But if I'm beating you in every day and you're trying to get your grind on and you're trying to get in this business, the other thing I would tell young people is don't be afraid to give your opinions. But understand they may be shot down. Like there's times on the bench, coaches say, well, what do you think we should run? And I'll say, hey, let's run Crimson, whatever the play is. And he'll say, let's do it. We'll run Crimson. And then we get out there and they turn it over and make a mistake. He's going to turn to me and say, man, we shouldn't run that. Good God, man. And you know what? You got to be able to go like this. Yeah, you're right. Whew, that was bad. Shouldn't have ran that one, coach. But you want to know something? The next time he says, should we run something? I'm going to say, yeah, let's run this. Blue, yellow, whatever. You have to be confident in yourself to be able to give suggestions, but also understand it may not come back to you good. But don't worry about that. Don't let that hinder your growth. Stay with it. Stay with it. That's the only way you're going to learn, the only way you get better.
Coach, I want to, the information and the advice that you have given today, I mean, it's just outstanding. And, whether someone wants to get into coach, because you talked about coaching, you talked about family, you talked about so many different experiences today that just so invaluable, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure many of our listeners are going to appreciate hearing what you had to say today. So, I mean, I know you're a basketball coach, and you probably don't take a whole lot of emails from people, but where can our listeners, connect with you?
My email's normr@ku.edu. And I get emails all the time. Now I will tell you, I don't read them that much, but I do read them every day, at least to start the day off and that stuff. But I don't mind that. And there's many a times young coaches hit me up and want advice, and I try my best to try to give that as much as I can to them. And as I said, it doesn't bother me. I'm not a big Twitter or Instagram. That's why I'm old. I'm not big into that at all. So I think I got like 7 followers or something like that. So but to me, that doesn't bother me at all. My wife's like, this is awful. And I'm like,
What do the kids say about it?
My kids follow me. My two kids follow me.
So,
My
so,
wife,
so the other 3 or 4 followers are outside the family, right?
yeah. So, but I'm not really into that stuff at all. So
I hear you. Well, Coach, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. And as I said, we've been longtime friends, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. And as I say to all of my guests, you have gone beyond the culture, and I thank you for joining me today.
well, I appreciate you, man. It's been fun, and this is something that drives my wife nuts about New Yorkers.
Okay.
I cannot see a New Yorker, a friend or whatever, junior high, high school, whatever, like you, not seen you in a long time, and then we can boom have a conversation, be laughing, and my wife said, "How can you do that? You haven't seen him?" And I was like, "Once you meet somebody and you know them, it's New York. They just stays that way."
That's New York. That's New York. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Norm. Thank you, sir.
All right.
After my interview ended with Coach Roberts, we started talking about NIL, the name, image, and likeness of the athletes. It's a current issue in college athletics. So here's a bonus question and a bonus answer from Coach Roberts. You know what I forgot to ask you, and it's my fault. What do you think about the NIL?
I think it's great for the kids. I do.
Okay.
I think it's great for them. It gives them a chance to make some money. The one thing kids got to be careful on that now. You know, these young kids, they want to make that money. They don't realize they're going to get taxed on that too now.
Right.
Get taxed on that money now. So just make sure you got everything in order too. But I do think it's good for the kids because for so long, people have been making a lot of money off of these kids, and they do deserve to get their fair share. It is good for them, and I'm happy for them. And that's up, but college sports has totally changed. It's nothing. No amateur, forget all that amateur stuff. Right. It's all out the window. So
now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David M. Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.